the central and southern coast Monday, especially between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., when inundation values of up to 4 to 6 feet above typically dry ground could occur. A storm surge warning is therefore in effect from Charleston County south. Non-life-threatening inundation up to 3 feet is expected for the northern portion of the coast Monday and Monday night. Storm surge inundation and rough surf could damage coastal properties, roads, and dunes, and severe beach erosion could occur. For the winds, tropical storm force wind gusts are expected to develop tonight and persist through Tuesday across much of the state, with the strongest winds south and west of I-26 and near the coast, where wind gusts up to about 65 miles per hour could occur. And tropical storm and high wind warnings will take effect due to those winds. Across central and southern portions of the state, a flash flood watch is now in effect for 3 to 6 inches of rainfall, with isolated amounts up to 8 inches possible. And 2 to 4 inches of rain is expected elsewhere to the north. These rainfall totals are down just a bit, and because of that, only minor river flooding is now expected later in the week, mainly on the Santee River near Jamestown. And there's also the threat for isolated tornadoes, and that would be more of a concern Monday and Monday night. And that's all I have, Governor.
Thank you. So as you heard of those barrier islands, nothing has changed. We still have the evacuation orders in effect. And there will be high winds. There'll be a lot of rain all over the state, depending where you're located. And also, of course, we don't expect the storm to change. It always could. We're not expecting it to, but we know we're going to have rains, a lot of water, and we're going to have some high winds, particularly on the coast in those the 3 counties that we mentioned earlier. That is Jasper, Colleton, and Beaufort. The team today consists, we've been giving you account of the officers and personnel on board in various places at their station. As of right now, we have 579 National Guardsmen on duty. We have 100 troopers assisting local law enforcement. Of course, you have all your county law enforcement, county and city law enforcement out. We have 89 state guardsmen on duty. We have 121 SLED, probation, pardon, and parole, and Department of Natural Resources agents on duty. We have 11 shelters open, and 264 evacuees are in those shelters as of noon today. Our total open shelters capacity is 7,127. So we have plenty of room, including plenty of room for our friends coming up from Georgia and Florida. Although, as mentioned yesterday, the upper coast of South Carolina is fairly clear, and they have plenty of hotel rooms in various parts of the state. Flooding in wind. As you can tell, this is a serious storm. Fortunately, it's not hitting us like we thought it might, but it is still hitting us, and it will hit hard. And you can see on the video monitor, we don't have the winds up there now. Well, yes, they are. You see, they're all over the state, and they go and this is as of now. They're going to be higher than that, and you see there they're up to 54, 55 miles an hour down on the South Carolina coast, and they go all across the state, and of course they will go higher as we go forward. They will extend well into South Carolina from the center of the storm, which is very, very wide. And on Monday from 10 to 4, we could experience 60-mile-an-hour winds in the low country, and maybe even more with that storm surge, again, of 4 to 6 feet. And that's 4 to 6 feet above dry ground, which is a lot of water. And that water is not just stationary, it's moving at a high rate of speed. So it's something that we do need to get out of the way of. President Trump called me this morning. He was calling from Camp David. I thanked him for approving our request for federal disaster assistance, which was done in just a few hours, a few days ago. He said he's with us. He assured me that he was willing to do anything that we needed to help the people of South Carolina. As for evacuations, the state and local law enforcement officers, along with the armed National Guardsmen, will be patrolling the evacuated barrier islands. We're not going to leave those evacuated barrier islands open to thieves and people who would want to go in to cause trouble. So let me make it perfectly clear. We have absolutely no tolerance for those who would try to take advantage of this storm for any sort of personal gain or thievery. Looters, thieves, mischief makers of any kind will be arrested on site. We'll have personnel there, armed personnel there, and they will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We don't want any of that to happen in South Carolina. State parks, the Hunting Island State Park and Edisto Beach State Park have been closed indefinitely for the evacuations. Charlestown Landing in Charleston will be closed today in anticipation of the possible flooding. School and government closings. As you know, there are numerous school and government closings set for Monday. 20 counties have school districts that will close on Monday. That is up to them to decide. 11 county governments will be closed on Monday. There may be more, and the list can be found at scmd.org. Fuel. We touched on this yesterday. The big stations are okay. They have contracts to have fuel brought to them. The others have fuel brought to them when it is available, but we do have some shortages. We do have some outages, but there's always fuel. If it's not at this exit, at the other station, at this particular exit, whatever exit that may be, just go to the next one. You'll be able to have fuel. So we're not running out of fuel. And that's my report for right now. And we'll proceed on with Kim Stinson, Director of Emergency Management Division. Stinson.
Thank you, Governor. Here at the State Emergency Operations Center, our two priorities right now. Number one is evacuation and sheltering operations, as the Governor talked about. Also for planning for response operations and damage assessment over the next several days. And we're prepared to help the counties with their damage assessment should they need it. We have EMD personnel that are embedded in Beaufort, Charleston, Colleton, and Jasper to coordinate operations as we proceed. We have other personnel on standby as needed. We're actively supporting county requests for support, ranging from generators to sandbags. We've had 131 requests so far, and we've completed, or they're actively in operation right now, 110 of those requests. We've got 18 county emergency operations center that are currently operational in some form. Also remind citizens to call our emergency hotline if you have questions, and that's at 1-866-246-0133, and it's also on that board up there. And as the Governor said, go to scemd.org for disaster information. And besides the closings, there's a lot of other good information and links to other services. Sir?
Thank you. General Livingston, National Guard.
Thank you, Governor. As the Governor mentioned, we are now in position to support our partner agencies and the counties with search and rescue, evacuation, and security operations, pre-storm, post-storm, with those three operations, along with route clearance operations with South Carolina DOT. You're also seeing some military movement through South Carolina to support our partners down in Georgia and Florida. We have quite a few helicopters that are stopping here in South Carolina, being refueled and headed down along with military convoys. We are sending an infantry battalion along with a transportation company, about 650 troops at this point, to assist our partners down in Florida. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. SLED, Chief Keel.
As the Governor said, there'll be no tolerance for folks trying to take advantage of those areas that have been evacuated. We have 121 state police officers and National Guardsmen that are patrolling those areas with local law enforcement. Those patrols in those areas will continue until a reentry, until the folks who left those areas are able to come back to them. So again, we want to make sure to send that warning out to anybody trying to take advantage of those individuals who's left. Those patrols will be there, and they will be keeping an eye on your property and security of those areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Secretary Hall, Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Governor. Traffic is flowing very well across the state today. Most of our traffic levels have returned to pre-storm conditions, if not actually lower than normal traffic volumes. The only exception to that is I-20 coming in from the Augusta area. We are seeing some elevated numbers on I-20, but even with those numbers, it's flowing very well. The US 17 at the Georgia border, that bridge has been closed by Georgia DOT as part of their normal storm protocol due to the winds in the area. We're expecting to potentially have to close some of the movable bridges along the coast sometime today once the winds achieve 25 miles per hour or more sustained. We're keeping an eye on the high-level bridges. That would be the Ravenel Bridge and some others along the coast. And decisions will be made if and when to close those bridges in coordination with local governments. We urge caution driving across the state today with these wind gusts that are coming through the area just due to the unpredictability of it. So please be careful on the highways.
Thank you. Director Smith, Public Safety.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon, everyone. We have shifted from our lane reversal and evacuation efforts, and now we have asked the National Guard to maintain those 15 wreckers because we will need those for quick clearance for the return of the out-of-state travelers. Also, we're prepared to assist SLED and ESF 13 with recovery, response, and security mission efforts should those calls come to our request. And thirdly, as stated earlier, we are preparing for an influx of traffic returning back to the various locations. We've seen an increase in traffic from Georgia and Florida. We were sure that the same out-of-state travelers that we saw pre-landfall, more likely we would see those same travelers post-landfall. So we are planning for that influx of traffic returning. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Director Smith. Director Alvin Taylor, DNR, please.
Thank you, Governor. As with all other state law enforcement, we're assisting ESF 13 and SLED for security missions, especially in our coastal region. We're also monitoring rainfall during this period in case we have unusual or high amounts of rain in some areas, so we can monitor our rivers for any possibility of floods, so we can assist in those areas with our officers. We are not expecting that, but we're monitoring it. We're also very busy on the coast with looking at the surge models to make sure that any way we can help with our boating capacity in our area, that we can help citizens there. We'll also be patrolling the Berry Islands by boat, by water, and also providing last-minute evacuation where possible. That's all I have, Governor.
Thank you. Thank you. Jonathan Jones, Fire Marshal, please.
Thank you, Governor.
Yes, sir.
Our state's fire and rescue resources remain in a state of readiness and are leaning forward and ready to respond to any requests for assistance locally. We have not received any request for assistance from local jurisdictions. I've personally spoken with several fire chiefs from coastal and low-lying areas to ensure that they have no unmet needs. Once our communities are in the clear, we will be assessing our ability to respond and assist our neighbors in Georgia and Florida with search and rescue assets. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Alan Wilson, Attorney General.
Relatively pleased as it relates to price gouging. To date, we have 250 complaints of price gouging in the state that have been logged with our office. That is considerably less than in previous disasters and evacuations. 85% still remains with fuel, with about the last 10% being water and the remainder being lodging and other materiel. If you witness something you believe to be price gouging, you can contact our office at scag.gov, and you can fill out a form there, or you can email us at pricegouging@scag.gov. If you don't have internet or don't have the ability to get to it, you can call 803-737-3953. All of these will be investigated after the event has occurred and our partner or neighboring states have gone through this event. We will be investigating these after this week, but probably not during the event. Thank you.
Thank you. Q. Weathers, Commissioner of Agriculture.
Thank you, Governor. I'll give two reports, one on behalf of agriculture. This is September. Thank goodness it's not October, as we've gone through these rain events before. Right at the heart of harvest season has been quite impactful. Right now, farmers are working hard to get those crops out of the field that are ready, and are very appreciative of the waiver to allow the oversized and overweight loads to move to market. That's very helpful. Farmers have been through this before, so our drainage and whatnot that farmers have prepared in their fields should allow for the 6 to 8 inches of rain in parts of the state to be handled more easily. On the other side, to help the gasoline supply issue, the department has issued a waiver on basically allowing summertime gasoline to go into the fall. Normally Labor Day is the cutoff for that, so that summertime gasoline will be used through October 31st. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Department of Social Services, Joan Meacham.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
DSS has been working overtime around the clock to support the shelter operations in the state. We'd like to thank our partners in this effort, particularly the American Red Cross, the Salvation Army, the Guard, and of course law enforcement. As of 2 p.m., we currently have 11 shelters and the Anderson Civic Center open. Yesterday, we had 3 shelters open: Colleton County Middle School in Colleton County, Ridgeland High School in Jasper County, and Dent Middle School in Richland County. The overnight capacity was just under 250 in all 3 of those shelters combined. The following shelters have opened today. Bluffton High School in Beaufort County opened at 9 a.m. Battery Creek High School in Beaufort County opened at 9 a.m. Orangeburg-Wilkinson High School in Orangeburg County opened at 10 a.m. Lake Marion High School in Orangeburg County opened at 10 a.m. Hunter Conard Tyler Elementary opened in Orangeburg County at 10 a.m. Branchville High School in Orangeburg County opened at 10 a.m. Richard Carroll Elementary School in Bamberg County opened at noon. The Anderson Civic Center in Anderson County opened at noon. This is to support our operations of evacuees arriving from Georgia and anyone else that needs to be sheltered. And in Charleston County at 1 p.m., the Coastal Pre-Release Center opened. This brings our current open capacity to over 7,000. We also have an additional 11 shelters that plan on opening late this afternoon. Kings Tree Senior High East Campus in Williamsburg County is scheduled to open at 3 p.m. C.E. Murray High School in Williamsburg County is scheduled to open at 3 p.m. Hemingway High School in Williamsburg County is scheduled to open at 3 p.m. D.P. Cooper School in Williamsburg County is scheduled to open at 3 p.m. Manning High School in Clarendon County is scheduled to open at 3 p.m. East Clarendon High School in Clarendon County is scheduled to open at 3 p.m. Scotts Branch High School in Clarendon County is scheduled to open at 3 p.m. Allendale Elementary School in Allendale County is scheduled to open at 4 p.m. Camden High School in Kershaw County is scheduled to open at 5 p.m. Crestwood High School in Sumter County is scheduled to open at 5 p.m. Calhoun County High School in Calhoun County is scheduled to open at 5 p.m. So by the end of the day today, we'll have a total of 23 shelters open with a capacity, eligible capacity of over 13,000. This is a moving target with changes every minute. Please check with SEMD.org.
Thank you, ma'am. Duke Scott, Office of Regulatory Staff.
Thank you, Governor. On the fuel issue, the governor has mentioned that the branded stations do have fuel. There have been issues with deliveries. We have coordinated now with DOT and Department of Public Safety so that if there's a delivery issue, they can contact, and they got our contact number. We reached out to the marketers. They got our contact number. They'll contact us. We'll work with DOT as far as the route's concerned, and Department of Public Safety as far as getting the trucks there. The big issue with the Brandon station is, of course, getting the deliveries there because of the traffic. But we've got that coordinated effort going on the electric providers side. The electric providers have been active recruiting crews, making sure they have the proper equipment, the transformers and those types of things. Of course, if you see a down power line, don't go near it because if you see a down line, don't go near it because you don't know whether it's a power line or a telephone line or what it is. So you need to stay away from any down lines. Electric utilities, because of the change that we've had, have actually gone to releasing some crews to help our neighbors in Georgia, some of the out-of-state crews that they've had. Governor, that's my report.
Okay. Thank you very much. David Wilson, DHEC, please.
Thank you, Governor. I would like to note that all regulated health facilities, inpatient health facilities in the counties of Jasper, Colleton, and Beaufort that were subject to the mandatory medical evacuation have evacuated or either been approved to maintain patients in shelter. Second, I'd like to note that in addition to notifying regulated dam owners across the state of the governor's executive order to lower water levels in cooperation with their downstream neighbors, we have now done pre-storm inspections or assessments of over 91 priority dams across the state. Finally, to help our clients for our county health facilities or clinics, we have activated our care line that clients can call to get information on closures and what other clinics are open that they can go to or reschedule their appointments. And that number is 1-800-868-0404. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Willie Nunn from FEMA.
Thank you, Governor.
Yes, sir.
We continue to be embedded here with the EOC, with my staff, and at every time that the state, any of the state partners, they have requirements as they support the mandatory evacuation, sheltering, any equipment needs that they have, it's our job to make sure that if they need help, that we get it to them, and that's why we're here. Also, we continue to stress, as the governor does, follow your local and your state guidance for this, and we're here to support. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you very much. And also for the county governments and others out there, Director Brian Sterling at the Department of Corrections says they have filled 54,500 sandbags and they have plenty of them left. About 11,500 have been distributed. So especially in those areas where we're going to have some severe flooding, if you need sandbags, they are available. Now we'll be glad to answer questions. Any questions?
Governor, do you know how many folks remain in the evacuated zones, and what is your message for any folks that do remain at this point?
Yeah, there are some remaining. We have some of those numbers, but of course, as they say, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And it's dangerous with the high winds and with the flooding. It's a dangerous situation, and what we'd say to everyone is the reason we issued that evacuation order is it was the combined professional judgment of everybody on this team that we should issue that evacuation order, and that means to get on out of there. And I would say it's not too late to go, and it's time.
Governor, what worries you most right now?
Well, when you have flooding and you have winds, you have a great potential for people getting hurt, people and animals, and of course property being destroyed anytime you have something like this. Nature is powerful, and if you've seen those photographs and the films down south, you realize how powerful. Sometimes we forget how powerful it is, but everybody remembers Matthew. This will be likely in some spots will be as damaging as Hurricane Matthew. It's not something to be taken lightly. So I guess the main thing we're worried about is the safety of the people. That's our main concern.
Here in the Midlands, what can people expect to see, or where are we most vulnerable?
They can see a lot of rain and a lot of wind, and they need to get ready for it. And always, this is it's a hurricane. It's not coming right at us, but it is going to give us very strong winds. And you see the tapes of things flying around in the air at these places that have winds, some of which are about what we're going to expect here right now, and you can get hurt. And it's a dangerous situation. Anytime you have high winds, anytime you have a lot of rain, you have people on the roads, you have children, you have vulnerable people. It's a dangerous situation. More questions? Yes, sir.
Do you have any thoughts on the director of DDSN spending last week on a Caribbean cruise?
Well, we will analyze and study all such things at a later date. Right now, what we want to do is be sure that the people understand that there is a dangerous storm coming. It's known as a hurricane. And it's not going to hit us directly, but it's going to hit us. And we've got to take care. And you don't get a second chance at these things. Once one of your loved ones gets hit or steps on a live wire or gets hit by something flying through the air or slips and falls or runs off the road because of the rain and they're not paying attention, you can't rewind that and do it again. So we urge people to use a little bit, use common sense, use good judgment, and be safe. Take care of yourselves. And in these areas, when the wind is blowing hard and the water is flowing in deep, we can't come get you. There's a time when you are purely on your own. Any more?
Yeah, you mentioned lane reversals. I wasn't clear on when or where that was happening.
It's not going to happen unless locally in Beaufort County that it's determined there are two roads leading out there. They could still be reversed, but it looks like not at this time. As Ms. Hall said, the traffic flow seems to be okay. Slight. Light.
Light traffic. Very light traffic, Governor.
Thank you. Light traffic.
Okay. And when would they reopen these areas? Do you know how long this evacuation is?
When it's safe to do so. No prediction at this time. Yes, sir.
Regarding the influx of traffic of people returning home afterward, when should drivers expect to see more traffic on the roadways and what are some of the worst areas?
We'll report that. That's a moving target, as they say, just like what we're doing now. We don't know exactly what is going to hit us, but we know we're going to get hit. But we'll have plenty of information, recommendations, and instructions for those returning home. Any more?
Having everyone together and really it seems like everyone's keen and focused on the evacuating and making sure that we're planning ahead for these shelters. And as it stands now, are you satisfied with all of the efforts, or are there anything that you might need people to pay attention to?
I think I can speak for all of us. We're very satisfied with the level of cooperation we've had. As I mentioned before and others have said, we really have a great team. I don't think that you can find a more professional, experienced team collaborating and working together than you have right here with this Team South Carolina. It's quite an organization and quite an enterprise. The one thing that I think we're all a little concerned about is some of the people who are not taking our recommendation to leave. It's always better to be safe than sorry. Always better. And as I say, you can't undo the harm that happens to you or your loved ones. You just can't undo it, and people will be struggling with the rest of their life, wishing if only this or if only that. So get out now while you can and avoid all that. Any more questions?
Governor, I think we heard we're sending about 650 troops to Florida to assist with their situation down there. What are we sending in the way of manpower for utility workers and so forth?
I'll ask the General and who else wants to speak on that? Dukes?
What kind of work? Utility workers?
Yes, sir.
Utility workers are under the control mainly of the Southeastern Compact among the different utility companies. So they will be sending them based on cooperative agreements between the different utilities. And so you'll get a flood of utility companies headed to Florida and Georgia. And then we will stand by to assist with any state agency's request.
And we've had communications with a number of the power companies, and they are all aware of how it's important to share those resources, just as we share with others, they'll be sharing with us when the time comes.
And what you're seeing now is that they have a conference call on a daily basis, and they determine who needs the utility crews the most. And they're already starting to move out of South Carolina, as Mr. Scott said, to Florida and Georgia.
You know about how many are moving out of South Carolina at this point?
We do not. Thank you.
But your MP unit is already gone.
Yes, our MPs are already deployed, and our infantry unit is deploying probably on Tuesday.
Any more questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was Governor Henry McMaster and his team working really over the last 4 or 5 days, talking about what's to come in the next day or so. Everything basically stays the same as regards to how the state is covering this emergency, Hurricane Irma. There will be impacts here. They did announce that more shelters will be open today into tonight. Charleston County, there is one that opened up. Let me pull that up here. That is, I believe, over near the detention center. A lot in Clarendon County, a lot in Orangeburg County right now. Bluffton High School, Battery Creek High School, they just opened this afternoon. As for what we can expect with this storm, let's turn to Chris Nessman. He's standing by with a look at that.
Hey, thanks, Dean. Yeah, watching Irma right now. Still a Category 3 storm. Made landfall as a Category 4, but it still packs a punch. I mean, you got to think Category 3, that's still considered a major hurricane. And when Katrina hit New Orleans, it was a Category 3. So it's still something worth watching. You can see it spinning right there as it moves towards the Naples and Fort Myers area. But I mean, this is a large storm, or at least the effects of it, as all our cloud cover is slowly moving up from the storm. So that's why it's been so overcast the past little bit. And the main impacts from Irma as it moves through, we're just going to get right to it, 3 to 6 inches of rain. Isolated pockets a little bit higher. Winds about 35 to 45 miles an hour, but we could see a few gusts even higher than that. Isolated tornadoes, that will mainly be a Monday threat, but there is still that possibility. And then storm surge, mainly for coastal areas, but about 2 to 4 feet. So significantly worse in Florida, but that's still just enough that we'll see a few areas of beach erosion, maybe some roads getting some water on top of it, etc. And again, the worst of those impacts will be on Monday. Now, the current track, it has shifted and it's weakened a little bit quicker than initially, but it's still keeping right up the west coast of Florida, moving into Georgia. But like we've talked about, it's such a big storm that even though Charleston's way out here and the main path of the storm is going to be somewhere in this cone, we're still going to be seeing those effects. As you look at the tropical storm wind kind of graphic, Charleston still is going to be seeing it. So tropical storm winds start at 39 miles an hour. We're forecasting 35 to 45. So we'll go with off and on tropical storm force winds with, again, gusts even a little bit more than that. And even with all of that, notice the rain is not too far from Charleston, yet the eye is just under 500 miles away from us. So it's a big storm. Lots of impacts across most of the area. Looking closer, again, moving just up towards the Fort Myers, Naples area. In fact, they're under an extreme wind warning right now, which you don't see that very often, as they're forecasting gusts of wind over 115 miles an hour. Closer to home, starting to see some rain in Savannah. Charleston, not quite, or we're just getting the very, very outer edges of it. Light for right now, but we will expect those to slowly pick up as the day goes on this afternoon. But you can already see some of the beach communities getting just a few showers right now. Going over the warnings, tropical storm warnings for everyone in our region, the exception being Georgetown, but they'll still get some of those gusty winds, especially as we go into tomorrow. Hurricane watch, Edisto Beach south down towards Beaufort, Colleton counties down towards Savannah. Storm surge warning. Again, mainly for the coastal locations, but you might have a few inlets here and there that see that ocean kind of come up as we move through the day tomorrow. And of course, a flash flood watch as well for most of the region. When you get 3 to 6 inches of rain in that amount of time, you're going to have pockets of flooding. So especially if you know where the hot spots are, be aware of those. Now, one thing too, we are seeing those winds pick up because not only do you have Irma, which is spinning counterclockwise, you've got an area of high pressure to our north, which is spinning clockwise, and it's that that gradient in between those that's pushing that wind in, and that's partially why we're seeing those breezy conditions. As we go through futurecast, let's watch this. Again, it moves up just past Tampa and then moves into Georgia, but you look at Charleston, we're going to really start to see it on Monday, and then we get those feeder bands, and that's where the concern is for those heavy rains, and again, those isolated tornadoes, as some of those little individual cells within that band can get pretty strong. Current temperatures, getting more to what we're seeing right now, 70s across the region, very breezy, northeast winds at 21 miles an hour in Charleston, 20 in Beaufort, a little bit less towards Orangeburg and Moncks Corner, but right out on the lake, those breezes are a bit stronger. And at least for tonight, tomorrow night, not a lot of changes. Rain, windy, and again, you can't count out the isolated tornado or two, so make sure you stay tuned into here. We'll keep you updated as we have plans to be here all night tonight and into tomorrow. Dave? Or Dean.
All right, Chris, thank you. So anyway, we will keep you up to date. Join us again, ABC News 4 at 6 o'clock. Right now, return to ABC News program and their coverage of Hurricane Irma.